Let's return Ms. Heisinger, and she, I believe, is up for cross-examination. Okay, Ms. Heisinger, you're still under oath from yesterday. Let's return the jury. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. And did you heed all of my previous admonitions over the evening recess? Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Baez, you may proceed, sir.
May it please the court. Mr. George. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Ms. Heisinger.
Good morning.
Yesterday you testified that you were friends with Casey Anthony.
That is correct.
But you really weren't friends for very long, were you?
No.
In fact, the entire time that you really hung out with her was really only from February to July.
That's correct.
So we're talking about 5 months, max.
Yes.
And a good portion of that you didn't even spend with her.
Not in physical contact, no.
And a majority of your relationship, or generally speaking, you guys communicated via text messages.
Or phone calls.
Do you recall letting law enforcement know that you generally text each other from February-ish several times?
Yes,
daily?
I gave them all my text messages.
I'm sorry?
Yes, I gave them all my text messages.
Yes. In fact, if I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
I am showing the witness defense exhibit T at deposit. You can hold on to that.
Sure.
Okay. Now, these are your text messages from April 24th through July.
Okay.
And you gave that voluntarily to law enforcement.
Correct.
They basically downloaded your phone.
Yes.
And this is practically all of the text messages, not only to Casey, but of course to other individuals throughout that time period.
Correct.
And practically covers the entire time you knew or were friends with Casey.
It's a little after, but yeah.
Now, there were a couple of text messages admitted yesterday, and there was only one that was admitted that talks about, well, actually, before I get into that, the youth today, that's all you guys do is text, right?
I had a job where I had a lot of downtime.
Okay. And it's very common for young adults your age to live on the phones, as they say.
That's correct.
And a large part of that is texting and MySpace and all that stuff. So this is a pretty good representation of your relationship with Casey.
It's a good picture.
Okay. And it shows a good picture of you as well.
Yes.
Now, the text messages that were admitted and I'm referring specifically to Defense Exhibit 58, State's Exhibit 58, there's only one that refers to Casey's mother watching Kaylee and her wanting to go out.
I haven't read through them all since I got them, but that's what's been submitted.
Okay. But there's numerous messages in here where you're asking Casey to go out, correct?
I'm sure there are.
And there are times Casey says, I'm sick, can't go out, not feeling well. Is that a yes?
That's correct, sorry.
Sorry. She needs to write down everything you say. So, and there are times that Casey gives other excuses as to why she can't go out.
Yes.
Okay. And, in fact, you're not Casey, so you don't know what her motivation is for not wanting to go out.
That's correct.
And then you talked about yesterday Casey's relationship with Cindy. But one, you didn't know Casey that long.
That's true.
And you never knew until July 15th, Cindy Anthony.
No.
So you can't really testify intelligently as to their relationship.
I testified as to what I was told.
With limited knowledge. Isn't that correct?
I testified as to what I was told.
With limited knowledge, though, right?
Sustain.
Would you consider yourself or represent to this jury that you have a vast knowledge of the relationship between Casey and Cindy Anthony, knowing her only 5 months?
Absolutely not. It was.
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Overrule as to that question.
You may ask it.
It was one-sided. You can only know one side of a story if you only know one person in the relationship.
And you only knew that person for 5 months.
5 months is relative. I've had some of my best friends over a month. Time doesn't really matter when you get close to someone.
My question was, and you only knew that person for 5 months?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as you testified earlier, a majority of your information or a majority of your relationship is contained in these text messages.
Or over many phone calls.
And you also testified about a smell in Casey's car.
Yes.
But there is only one text message dealing with the smell of Casey's car. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And that one text message is on June 27th, 2008, the day she ran out of gas.
Yes.
And the day she left her car at the Amscot.
Yes.
And the day that she left her car at the Amscot with garbage in the trash. Garbage in the trunk.
I don't have any.
That's not what this witness testified.
I'll withdraw the question. Now, it's fair to say that, let me ask you this. Is it fair to say that your memory during that time period might have been a little fogged as well?
It was a long time ago.
One, it was a long time ago. Is that a yes?
This is correct.
Okay. And two, you were drinking quite heavily during those days, were you not?
I don't know if I would say heavily.
Okay.
I would go out with friends, but not any more than anyone else my age does.
And anyone else your age would mean almost every night?
Don't think it was almost every night. I'm sure it wasn't. I couldn't afford that.
3 or 4 nights a week?
Say 3 or 4 nights was accurate.
Okay. And each of those nights you, of course, would drink significantly?
Not significantly.
You would drink?
I would drink.
And yesterday when you testified to this jury that you crashed your car because you fell asleep, you were in fact drinking and driving.
I don't think that's relevant. I had drinks, but I had stopped drinking 3 hours before I went home. I had sobered up significantly, and I did legitimately fall asleep. It was a very long stretch of road. It was very dark, and I had nodded off in the middle of the day on that stretch of road many times.
You've nodded off on that road many times?
On the way home from work during the daytime, it's a boring stretch of road.
And is that the only time you crashed?
From falling asleep, yes.
Can you turn to page 4736? The pages are handwritten on the left-hand corner, ma'am.
I'm just looking for it.
Have you found page 4736?
Yes, sir.
The third text message down.
Yes, sir.
Can you read that?
I hit a guardrail. Thank God I'm okay. I didn't get a DUI.
I'm going to object to improper impeachment. It's a collateral issue.
I think this witness has testified.
Well, let me see it. Somebody.
Yes, sir.
What number are you talking about?
It's the third text message down.
Is it 1916 and 1917?
1917.
Okay, approach. Okay, objection sustained. You may proceed.
Yes, sir. If I can have a moment.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Huizinga, during that accident, It was you totaled your car.
I self-totaled it.
Okay. And the airbag blew up.
Yes, sir.
You had a bloody nose.
It was not bloody. It was just a little crusty.
Okay. You had do you recall having a head injury?
No. I don't believe so. I honestly, I haven't thought about it in a while. I just remember the nose.
Did you send out a text message asking for people to call you in 10 minutes just in case you passed out?
I don't know. Did I?
Have a moment, Judge. I'm sure I can find that one. Page 4719. First text message.
Yes. I said I don't know if I hit my head or not.
Okay. And that's because I guess didn't have your bearings straight?
No, had never been hit with an airbag. I didn't quite know what happened.
And did someone have to call you in 10 minutes?
I don't think so.
Okay. So you were fine?
Yeah.
Okay. And did that affect your memory in any way?
No.
And did you see a doctor in reference to that?
No.
Okay. So you don't know the full extent of what result that might have had? You never saw a doctor?
No. No.
Now, you testified yesterday that Casey dated Ricardo.
Correct.
And after Casey finished dating Ricardo, she then dated Tony.
Correct.
And after Casey dated Ricardo, you moved in with Ricardo.
That is correct.
And you met Jesse after July 15th.
That is correct.
July 15th, you guys went out?
We struck up a friendship.
You went out with Jesse?
I don't believe we actually went out. We met up a few times to talk about things to do with the case and trying to find Kaylee.
Did you ever tell him you always wanted to meet a good Christian boy?
Well, yes, that's the truth.
Relevance of this and outside the scope.
Sustained.
Are there any other boyfriends of Casey's that you have gone out with or moved in with since?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
Overruled is relevancy.
Goes to the credibility of the witness and motive.
I was friends with Ricardo. Oh, sorry.
You
sorry.
don't need to answer that question. Next question.
Now, were you at the home, the Anthony home, on June 16, 2008?
No, I was not.
However, you did talk to Casey that day.
I'm sure I did.
But you don't recall anything out of the ordinary from that conversation or
No.
anything that you can help this jury determine what happened to Kaylee?
No, I cannot.
I have no further questions, Judge.
You need to read it? You may.
Subject to recall, we have no further questions.
Any redirect, Mr. George?
No, sir.
Okay, may the witness be excused, subject to recall.
May I say something?
May counsel approach?
Yes. State may call the next witness.
State would call Lee Anthony.
Sound like clear order? Tell me.
Lee Anthony, Anthony.
All right, Mr. George, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Anthony, good morning.
Morning.
Sir, how old are you?
I'm 28.
You're working?
Not currently, no.
Okay. Where do you currently live?
Here in Orlando.
Are you living with your parents?
No, sir, I'm not.
Your Casey Anthony is your sister?
Yes, she is.
Sir, back in 2008, specifically in June and July of 2008, were you living with your parents at the Hope Springs Drive address?
No, sir, I was not.
How far away were you living from that home?
Not even 5 minutes.
During this time period, did you have a lot of contact, or did you have regular contact with your sister?
Every couple weeks or so.
Starting on June 16th of 2008 through July 3rd, did you have any contact with your sister, Casey?
Yes.
Okay. When was that?
There was a kind of just a quick MySpace message at one point just to kind of say, hey. That was in the middle of June. I don't know the exact date. And I also spoke with her numerous times on the 23rd of July.
Did there come a time in the beginning of July when you went over to visit your mom?
Yes, sir.
Why did you go over there?
I was asked to by my mom.
And why were you asked to go? Why did you go?
Well, I just went because she asked me. And she just said that she needed to see me.
Okay. And when you went to go see her, did she ask you for any assistance?
Not at that time, but she did express that.
Basis of objection?
Hearsay.
Sustained.
On July 3rd of 2008, were you aware that both your sister and your niece had not been home?
My mother did make me aware on that date, yes.
Again, I object hearsay.
Sustained.
What did you do over at your mom's house on July 3rd of 2008?
If I recall correctly, I was never at my mom's house on July 3rd. I just spoke to her on the phone that day.
Were you aware that your mother had created a MySpace account?
At some point in time, I became aware of it, but I was not aware of it at the time.
Okay. Did you help her set up that account?
No, sir, I don't believe I did.
Did you investigate on your own where your sister might be on that date?
On July 3rd, yes, I did.
On July 3rd?
Yes.
Okay. What did you do?
I went on to MySpace to try to find out where she was, and eventually through Facebook figured out where I thought she was going to be that evening.
Where did you think she was going to be that evening?
Downtown Orlando at a nightclub called the Dragon Room.
Upon learning where she might be, what did you do?
I decided I was going to go and asked a friend of mine to go with me.
You know Mallory Parker?
Yes, sir, I do.
She's your girlfriend?
At the time, she was my girlfriend, yes.
Okay. Did she also go with you downtown on July 3rd?
She ended up meeting myself and my friend down there, yes.
Okay. What time did you go downtown?
Maybe about 9, 10 at the latest.
And when you got downtown, what did you do? Did you try to get a hold of her? Of Casey?
Eventually, yes.
Eventually you tried, or eventually you did?
Both.
Okay. Well, first things first. Did you attempt to get a hold of her?
Yes, when it was becoming more and more clear that she was not going to be at this nightclub or not going to be showing up, That's when I made my first attempt to just try to see where she was.
And how did you make that attempt?
I believe my first attempt was via text message.
Okay. Do you recall what you wrote to her?
Not exactly, no.
Did you an idea?
Sure. It's probably just something to the extent of, hey, what's going, where you at? You want to grab a drink?
Okay. Did she respond?
I don't believe she did at that time, no.
Did you also ask Mallory to send text messages?
Yes, after I was unsuccessful on my first, maybe second attempt on text, I asked her to do it, but not make it clear that I was with her.
During this time frame, while you were still trying to make contact with your sister, did you go to any other location other than the Dragon Room?
No, I did not.
How long did you attempt various text messages to get a hold of your sister?
Maybe off and on for about an hour.
And what did you do after that?
Started calling.
Okay. How many times did you call her?
Half a dozen off and on.
Okay. Did you leave messages every time?
Probably.
In any of those first phone calls that you attempted, did your sister ever pick up?
Yes, she did on a few of them.
When she picked up the phone, what do you recall saying to her?
Where are you at? Do you want to meet up? That was probably more on the first time she would have picked up.
Okay. And what did she respond when you asked her that?
I'm busy. I'm out with friends. I'm doing my own thing. I'll talk to you later.
Did she hang up on you?
Numerous times, yes.
At this point, what are you feeling? Are you angry? Are you upset? Are you frustrated? How would you describe what you're going through at this time?
Relevancy?
It goes to this particular witness's state of mind and his further
Objection
action.
sustained.
Did you eventually have a phone conversation with your sister this night?
Yes, I had numerous phone conversations with her that night, yes.
Let's talk about when you finally were able to have a conversation with her, did you ask her where she was?
Yes, at one time I specifically asked where she was.
And what did she tell you?
She told me she was in Jacksonville.
When she told you she was in Jacksonville, what was your response?
I knew it was a lie. Okay. So I just immediately kept questioning her, well, what are you doing in Jacksonville? Where are you in Jacksonville? Things like that.
What'd she say?
That I'm out with a friend. I'm at a country western bar.
Did you call her out?
Yes.
Okay. What do you recall saying to her when you were calling her out?
Just something to the extent of, I know you're in town. I know you were going to this, get together at the Dragon Room, and where are you?
During this phone conversation, did you ask about where Kaylee was?
Yes, I did.
What did she tell you?
I don't really recall. I think she said that she was being watched while she was out with her friend.
Did you ask her who this friend is or was?
I don't believe I did.
When you called her out and told her that you knew she wasn't in Jacksonville, what was her response to you?
She said I was wrong.
Did she always maintain through your conversations with her that she was in Jacksonville?
Objection, Your Honor.
Calls for a yes or no, Your Honor.
Overruled.
I believe she did.
And what did she tell you?
That she was in Jacksonville.
Okay. That she was in Jacksonville.
Yes.
How did that conversation end?
I believe I had said something that she needed to talk to Mom, and I think she eventually hung up on me or something like that.
Did you tell her that your mother was worried about her?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell her that your mom was worried about Kaylee?
Objection, leading, Your Honor.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Did you tell her that her family was worried about her?
Objection, leading.
Calls for yes or no, Your Honor.
No, it's yes, no, overruled.
Her being my sister or Kaylee?
Let's go with Kaylee.
I believe I just put them both together at that time. So I just said they're worried about you guys or worried about you.
And were you worried about her as well?
At that juncture, right then, yes.
When you told her that everyone in the family was worried about her, what was her response?
Everything's fine. I'll talk to Mom tomorrow.
You said she hung up on you.
That's what I recall, yes.
Okay. Did you attempt to call her back?
Numerous times.
At some point, did you ever speak with her on the phone again that night?
After kind of expressing some of the things that we just discussed, I don't believe I got to speak to her again.
Did you exchange any more text messages with her that night?
I may have. I don't recall.
Did you continue to look for her downtown that night?
Yeah, I did.
Where'd you go?
Well, I just stayed right on that little stretch of Church Street because there's about 4 or 5 bars. And it just seemed like if she was in one of those locations, I would see her when she came out. And I actually went to a few other bars that were pretty close by that I thought there's a chance she could have been into.
Did you see her?
No.
What time did you leave Church Street?
Well, after 2?
Did you go anywhere else to look for her that night?
No, I did not.
After July 3rd, did there come a time that you had learned that she had been gone for a period of weeks?
Yes, my mom had made me.
I'm not asking about what. I'm not asking.
Hearsay.
Let me try to rephrase it.
Just a second.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Objection, hearsay. He began to speak about what his mother said, I think.
Sustained.
Your Honor, it's not going to the truth of the matter asserted.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, it's not going to the truth of the matter asserted.
Then what's the purpose?
The purpose is what this witness eventually did about the information that he received.
I still can't hear. The fact what?
What this witness did with the information he received.
Overruled.
Relevant. Okay. Between July 4. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, sir. I haven't won many of those.
Could you repeat the question?
Did you come to learn that no one in your family had seen Kaylee or Casey for a number of weeks?
Yes.
When you learned that, starting on July 3rd or maybe even July 4th, up until July 15th, did you make any further effort to locate your sister and your niece?
I don't believe I did.
Is there a reason why you did not?
My mom asked me not to.
Would it be fair to say that during this time period, did you believe everything was under control?
Overruled.
Yes.
Okay. Did you see your mother during the period of July 4th to July 15th?
I don't think I did.
Did you speak with her?
Yes.
Based on your conversations or contact with your mom, how would you describe her demeanor as it related to your sister and Kaylee?
I believe I only talked to her about it once after the 3rd, and that was when she asked me not to pursue this any longer. So I guess her demeanor was determined, or she had it under control.
Do you recall giving a deposition back on July 30th of 2009? where I asked you some questions, Ms. Drain-Burdick was there, Mr. Ashton?
Yes.
Do you recall me asking during this time period, after you had attempted to find your sister, how your mom was acting and her demeanor, and what your answer was to that?
I'm sorry, improper impeachment.
Improper impeachment. Mr. George, are you impeaching him?
No, Your Honor, I'm trying to. The witness had indicated that he didn't remember, and I was merely trying to set up
Well,
a
take this deposition and let him read it, and then ask him, does it refresh his memory?
Thank you. May I approach the witness? Your Honor?
You may.
Understanding that this witness indicated that he was expressing his recollection of his mother's demeanor. He didn't say he didn't recall.
No,
You can approach.
Thank you. For court and counsel, I'm referring to the deposition taken on July 30th of 2009, lines 21 through 25, and page 81, lines 1 and 2.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Anthony, how would you, does that help refresh your recollection as to how your mother was feeling during this time period?
Specifically what the time period was again?
Right after July 4th.
No. My recollection is the same that I had expressed in the previous question. There was nothing that I read there that makes me believe that discussion was about the about the 4th or after.
Okay. Yes, sir. Did you see your sister again? Well, when was the next time you saw your sister?
July 15th.
Where did you see your sister?
At my parents' house.
What were you doing over at your parents' house?
My dad called me.
Were you asked to go there?
And yes.
Your Honor, hearsay. Objection.
Overruled.
Approximately what time did you get to your folks' house?
About 8, I believe.
When you got there, was anybody home?
No.
You have a key to the house?
No. Well, if I did, I didn't use it.
Okay. How'd you get in the house?
Garage door.
When the garage door opened, did you see a vehicle in the garage?
Yes.
Which car did you see?
My old Pontiac Sunfire.
When you first opened the garage door and walked into the garage, what do you recall noticing?
A smell that the windows were down in the car, and there was some writing on the windshield of the car.
Okay. What do you recall about the smell of the car?
Just that it was very potent, very strong. Was it an offensive smell? Yes.
Did you approach the car?
I had to walk by to get to the door, but otherwise not by choice.
Okay. Where'd you go from there? You go into the house?
Yes.
How long were you in the house before anyone arrived?
Less than 5 minutes.
Who arrived?
My mother and my sister.
Now, what is the first thing you recall your sister saying upon entering the house?
Upon entering the house, She would have been in her room after she entered, so
Do you remember?
I don't recall the exact words. I don't remember.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Again, for court and counsel, I'm referring to the deposition taken on July 30th of 2009, page 94, lines 17 and 18. All right, sir, you had the opportunity to read over your transcript?
Yes, sir.
All right, what is the first? Does that help refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay. What was the first thing your sister said to you, or said in your presence?
That she wasn't sure why she even bothered. It didn't seem like anyone was listening to her.
You're not even listening to me. Why do I bother?
There you go.
Okay. What was your sister's state at that time? How would you describe her demeanor when she came into the home?
Combative.
How about your mom?
Equally, or if more so, combative.
You had indicated a couple minutes ago that upon entering the house, your sister went into her bedroom?
Yes.
Okay. Did you follow?
Yes.
In the bedroom, did you actually enter the bedroom?
More or less stood in the doorway.
Okay. Where was your mom?
In the bedroom as well.
Okay. And what's going on?
They are continuing a discussion that they had, I would imagine, prior to arriving at the house.
What do you recall your sister saying other than "you're not listening to me, why do I even bother"?
Just the location of where Kaylee was.
Did she tell you where Kaylee was?
She said that she was with a nanny.
At this particular moment, had you been aware of the existence of a nanny?
No.
Had your sister, or were you ever under the impression that your sister used a nanny from time to time?
No.
Do you recall being in the bedroom when your sister gave an explanation as to where Kaylee was and why she wasn't coming home, or why she wasn't being brought home?
Not exactly where she was, just that she was with a nanny. As far as her not coming home, was that she was already, asleep for the evening, and she didn't want to, disturb her.
Do you recall any comments about that the defendant made about a cycle or a routine?
Yes, I do. It was something along the lines of, this is what she's been, used to, and I don't want to, change that. I interpreted that as her, sleeping routine throughout the, for, I guess, some time leading up to that point. Did that make any sense to you? Maybe from a routine standpoint, but not from I should appease my mother and get my child back. I would think that should be the train of thought, but.
Do you recall your answer upon being asked that question at the deposition?
No.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
In what page?
Page 101, lines 15 through 24. Sir, do you recall what you said? Do you recall what you said at the deposition in regards to the defendant's statement regarding not taking Kaylee out of her comfort zone?
Yes.
What did you say?
That deposition says that I referenced her routine was approximately 3 weeks at that time.
Later on, did you read when I asked you, did that make sense to you, and what your response was?
My response was something.
And also relevance as well.
I'll show you again if you like.
Just a second. Sustain is the relevancy.
How long were your mom and your sister arguing in your bedroom?
In my sister's bedroom, couple minutes.
Do you recall ever saying that it was much longer than that?
Well, I mean, throughout the evening, but at that juncture, it was a couple minutes. It was always a couple minutes at a time, if that helps you.
What did your sister say about getting Kaylee? When you could get Kaylee?
Tomorrow.
Was it always tomorrow?
It seemed that way.
Did that satisfy you?
Sustain.
Did you offer to go get Kaylee that night?
Yes, I did.
What did you say to your sister? What was your suggestion?
I could go get Kaylee. I could have my roommate at the time go get Kaylee. There was, in my mind, no excuse why anybody couldn't go get Kaylee.
And what was your sister's response to having somebody else go get her?
At one point, she was actually receptive to it, but for the most part, it was, I don't want to disturb her, or I don't think Mom would allow it.
I'm sorry, Judge, may we take a quick break? I'm going to go a couple minutes early, but I could use it.
Okay, we'll take a 15-minute recess
Thank you.
at this time. They recognize President of the jury.
Yes, sir.
Defense. All right, Mr. George, you may continue.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Anthony, do you recall specifically asking your sister, why won't you allow us to see Kaylee?
Yes.
What was her response?
I don't recall. I think it was just still along the lines of she's asleep. We'll get her tomorrow.
Okay. Do you recall giving a taped interview with Corporal Edwards on July 29th of 2008?
Yes.
Do you recall telling him what you... Do you remember telling him what your sister said to you?
I don't recall, no.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
For court and counsel, I'm referring to the interview with Detective Edwards on page 8, lines 15 through 17.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this particular question based on 9404 and 405. May we approach, Your Honor?
Well, not at this point. He's just asking to refresh his memory. If he goes beyond that, then we can approach.
Sir, you had a chance to read that over?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall what you said to Detective Edwards back on the 29th now?
Your Honor,
Yes, I did.
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to object, but his response was just yes. So my objection would be the answer to the statement, the question, the answer to the question.
Oh.
Was,
Let's approach. Since I don't have the statement. Okay, objection overruled. You may ask the question.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. When you asked your sister, why won't you allow us to see Kaylee, what do you recall her saying? Or what did you say, what did you tell Detective Edwards that she said?
I told Detective Edwards that she said, I'm paraphrasing, because maybe I'm a spiteful bitch.
You had stated, I believe, earlier that during this time frame, your mom would come and go from the room. Is that right?
That is correct.
The times that your mom was away from the room, did you attempt to talk to your sister?
Yes, I did.
Would it be fair to say you were trying to reason with her?
Yes.
Do you recall asking her, well, what's going on? What's happening?
Yes.
Do you recall what she told you? Again, in the bedroom.
Right. At one point, she said that Kaylee was missing, that someone had kidnapped her.
We'll get to that. Initially, when you're still trying to figure out why you can't go get Kaylee,
Right.
do you recall your sister telling you or talking to you about your mom when you were asking her what's going on?
I don't recall.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
It's the same interview, counsel. Page 6, lines 2 through 10. Sir, does that help refresh your recollection?
Yes, it does.
What did you tell Detective Edwards?
That when my mom would leave and I would ask her, what's going on, talk to me, give me something, that she did express that her and my mother had, got...
I'm sorry, I need to interpose an objection with regard to anything that Cindy Anthony may have said is hearsay, also relevance and character.
As to anything that Sidney Anthony may have said, that would be hearsay, so that objection would be sustained. Don't tell us anything your mother said unless you're relating to us what Casey told you.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You may.
Sir, what do you recall your sister telling you when you were asking her, what's the deal, what's going on? What did she say to you?
Just read. Okay. That...
Sorry. Your Honor, I object to proper impeachment.
As to improper impeachment, objection will be overruled. Are you refreshing his memory, Mr. George, or are you trying to use it as past recollection recorded?
Past recollection recorded.
Okay. You need to establish that he has no independent memory after looking at the document before you can use past recollection recorded.
Yes, sir. Sir, do you recall the statement that you've just read?
Yes.
All right. As you sit here today, can you tell this jury exactly what your sister told you in that bedroom?
From what I remember, that...
Not to paraphrase, do you recall exactly what she told you, or what you told Detective Edwards she exactly told you?
I'm sorry. That he's interrupting the witness, actually, as he was answering the question.
Pardon?
I object to Mr. George interrupting the witness when he was answering the question.
Overruled.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Do you recall exactly what your sister told you in reference to your question, what's going on, what's the deal? Do you recall, as you sit here right now, verbatim, word for word, what you told Detective Edwards she told you?
Verbatim, word for word, no, sir, I do not.
Would it help you remember if you were to actually see the quote that you gave Detective Edwards?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, may I approach the witness with the transcript?
You may. Are you trying to get this under past recollection or recorded or refreshed? Under past recollection recorded, one of the predicate elements is that it must be written by the witness. This is not written by the witness, is it? Okay, then he can try to testify based upon his refreshed memory.
I'm not done reading.
Mr. Anthony, now that you've had the chance to see this, what did your sister tell you?
She told me that my mother had numerous times thrown it in her face, in my sister's face, that Casey was an unfit mother for Kaylee, and that Casey says, maybe I am. And I went on to say that my mother had also referenced Kaylee as being a mistake, but a great mistake, or the best mistake that Casey's ever made.
During this time period, would it be fair? Are you getting frustrated with your sister?
Very, yes.
Okay. Why are you getting frustrated? Or why are you frustrated with her at this point?
Nothing was making sense to me.
What's not making sense to you?
Why couldn't we or anybody just go get Kaylee and bring her home? There's no reason to fight with, Mom at this point.
Do you recall asking your sister, what's in it for you?
Yes.
Do you recall what she told you?
No, I don't.
Okay. I'm sorry, Your Honor. May we approach one more time?
Yes.
What did you do? We could have found her.
Sorry, Your Honor. Objection here.
Again, Your Honor, it's not going to the truth of the matter, sir.
Sustain.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Move to strike as well.
Motion to strike, grant. Jury is instructed to disregard the last statement of Mr. Anthony. You may continue, Mr. George.
Thank you, sir. While this conversation is going on, is your father at the house?
No, sir, he's not.
And at that point, do you have any other conversation with your sister prior to the police arrival?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What did you talk to her about?
Where was the last place that you remember seeing Kaylee?
What did she tell you?
At Sawgrass Apartments. And I'd also asked her where she'd been staying.
What did she tell you?
With her boyfriend at the time, Tony Lazaro, at his apartment.
Did she give you any indication that she was looking for her daughter?
Yes, she did.
What'd she say?
That she had been trying to find her herself.
Did she say how?
Later in the evening, she did.
What would she do?
She said she camped out at the last place that she had seen Kaylee, where she dropped her off. By camping out, I mean she was in her car, kind of watching the place, I guess.
Did she tell you for how long she did this?
I don't recall. A couple days.
Did she tell you about any other searches that she conducted to try to find her daughter during this time period?
She said that she would go to places that she thought Kaylee could be, or that someone might take Kaylee, like, just a normal place, like a store or a park or something like that.
Did your sister indicate to you when she had last spoken to Kaylee?
She at one time described a phone call that she had received.
Do you recall, was it that same day?
I'm sorry?
Was it that same day on July 15th
That she told me about the phone call?
that she received the phone call?
I believe so.
What did she tell you about talking to her daughter on July 15th of 2008?
I remember this phone call. She had told me that the only person on the other end of the call was Kaylee. I don't remember exactly or what, if anything, if Kaylee said to Casey for it to realize it was her, but Casey's response to Kaylee was to put an adult on the phone.
Did you ask her at that moment, during that conversation, why she hadn't told anybody about this?
I don't believe I did.
Okay. Upon hearing this news, what did you do?
That Kaylee had been missing?
Yes.
Asked her some of those follow-up questions that we just discussed, and just immediately tried to do something to try to locate her.
You went into search mode.
Yes.
You obtained the name of your sister's boyfriend at the time?
Yes.
Were you able to figure out where he lived?
Yes.
How were you able to figure that out?
She told me.
Did you call, I guess we're talking about Tony Lazaro?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you call Mr. Lazaro?
Yes, I did.
Did you make arrangements to go see Mr. Lazaro?
Yes, I did.
And did you do so?
Yes, I did.
When did you see him?
If it was not that evening of the 15th, it was in the very early hours of the 16th
Where did you meet with him?
at his apartment.
While you were at his apartment, did you tell them what was going on?
Yes.
Did you receive any items from Mr. Lazaro?
Yes. Casey's belongings.
What belongings do you recall getting?
I got a laptop, a duffel bag full of clothes, I believe there was like a backpack as well, and just like another bag, like more or less like knickknacks and things like that.
Do you recall anything specific about the laptop itself?
Yes, it was on, but it was like a blue screen.
Are you computer savvy?
Yes, sir.
When you saw that blue screen, what did that indicate to you?
Virus. Something was wrong.
Did you attempt to reboot or to fix the computer at Mr. Lazaro's?
I did attempt to reboot it. As soon as I did it, it went to that same blue screen.
Did you turn the computer off or did you just take it with you?
At that point, I just turned it off and I took it with me.
I'm sorry, Judge, may I have a moment?
You may. You may.
Sir, let me show you what's the mark of identification KG. And ask if you could just keep it down below there. Take a look at what's inside.
Okay.
You have a chance to look at that, Mr. Anthony?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you recognize the items in that envelope?
The majority of them, yes.
The majority of them. What do you recognize?
Object as to relevance and also speculation.
Let me see it first.
May we approach?
Yes, ma'am. You may proceed, Mr. George.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Anthony, you still have exhibit, I believe it's KG in front of you.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize what they are?
Yes.
What are they?
There are some receipts, movie ticket stubs, a photocopy of a note of mine,
Okay.
and then just a sheet, I think, authorizing it in evidence.
How many receipts are there, sir?
I didn't count numerous, a dozen, give or take.
They're in front of you. Can you count them?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just the receipts.
So the number, as this witness cannot testify that those receipts are relative to this case.
Overall, at this point,
I count 19.
Did you did you come into possession of those receipts?
I never had possession of these receipts now.
Do you know where those receipts came from?
They were in one of.
He's already testified that he did not have possession of these receipts.
overall at this point.
They were in one of Casey's belongings that I recovered from Mr. Lazzaro's apartment.
You brought them back to your parents' house on Hope Springs
Yes.
Drive? What did you look at them that night?
No, I did not. I didn't know their existence that night.
At some point, when did you become aware of their existence?
Within a few days.
How did you become aware of them?
During one of our sit-downs, the family sit-downs with law enforcement, they were offered the receipts and anything that was in anything that was in any of her bags.
Well, let's talk about the bags. What do you recall? You testified a few minutes ago that you took a laptop from Mr. Lazzaro's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And how many bags?
I put the laptop itself into a bag, so that would have been 3.
You had referenced a backpack.
Yes, I believe that was one of 3.
When you got back to your parents' house, did you empty the contents of those bags?
I did not.
Were you present when the contents of those bags were emptied?
Yes, I was.
Do you know which bag those receipts were in?
They would have had to have been in the backpack.
Was that the only time that you were over at Mr. Lazzaro's house on the 16th? On the 15th, I'm sorry.
15th or even morning of the 16th, yes.
When the police first arrived at your home, did you immediately speak with them? Tell me what happens when the first police officers arrive.
I did not speak with them. The first officer came into the front door, came to my sister's bedroom, and I believe started asking her questions.
Were you present for that?
I was in the next room at that time.
Is your Is your dad at home yet?
Yes, he was at home at that time.
When exactly did your dad come home at the same time that the police arrived, or was it a little bit before or a little bit after?
Slightly before, within minutes.
After the police arrived, did you yourself have any conversation with your sister?
Yes, I did.
Where was that? I mean, on that night?
Yes. In the garage.
Is the car still there?
Yes, sir.
Does it still smell?
Yes, sir.
Still bad?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What did you talk to your sister about?
I asked her just additional questions. That's when she told me about the phone call that she had that day.
Are you referencing the phone call you testified to earlier about talking to Kaylee?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I had asked her some additional questions about Tony. At that time, I had not been to the apartment. And I also referenced how awful the garage and, the car smelled.
Was it difficult to stay in the garage with that odor?
Yes, sir.
When the items that you received from Mr. Lazaro belonging to your sister were brought back to Hope Spring, did you see anything that belonged to Kaylee in those items?
I don't believe so.
Judge, thanks for the time. I have no further questions of the witness at this time.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Mr. George, may it please the court?
Proceed.
Good morning, Lee.
Morning.
As I understand it, you are Casey's older brother, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now back to July the 3rd, that evening, you indicated you received 2 phone calls from your mother, is that correct? Or initially several phone calls?
Initially, I think I may have just gotten one phone call from her. I picked up right away.
All right. And during that phone call, there was no mention of Kaylee being missing, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
To your knowledge, your mother didn't call your father to find Casey that night, correct?
I have no idea.
Now, on July 3rd, as I understand it, you left for Chicago, and you stayed there until about the 15th.
On which day, I'm sorry?
July 3rd or 4th?
I don't remember exactly when I was in Chicago. I actually think it was more in June. I definitely didn't leave on the 3rd. I was downtown. And 4th of July would be more of a family occasion, so it wouldn't have been at that time.
From June 15th to July 3rd of 2008, you saw your mother approximately one time, maybe? Does that sound correct?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Now, on July the 15th of 2008, you indicated that you were present when your mother called the police, correct?
Yes.
And at that time, you did not believe that any crime had been committed. Is that correct?
Sustained.
The Sunfire that was in the garage that you saw, it had some white shoe polish writing on it. Is that correct? Was that your understanding that that was writing from the tow company?
Later, that was my understanding, yes.
Okay. It wasn't a message or a letter or anything of that nature. It was.
No.
Okay. Now, the Pontiac Sunfire that was in the garage on the 15th, that was the car that Casey drove with your, is that correct?
Correct.
And your father had an extra set of keys to that car, didn't he?
Yes.
And the set of keys that would have allowed him to access the vehicle as well as the trunk.
Yes.
Correct? When you were talking with Casey, there were time periods where you were whispering to her.
Yes, one time in particular.
Okay. And she was crying. Did you observe crying?
Yes, ma'am.
When your father arrived prior to the police, he did not go into Casey's room and say what's going on or what's wrong, did he?
I don't believe so.
And in fact, prior to the police arriving on that date, your father didn't ask you what was going on. Correct? I'll rephrase it.
Sustain, rephrase your question.
There were no questions that your father asked you prior to the police arriving, were there?
Not that I recall, no.
Now, during the time in which this confrontation that you talked about between your mother and your sister occurred, your role was sort of the peacemaker or the mediator. Is that correct? You're trying to, anyway.
Doing my best.
And your mother's focus, based on your observation, was more, instead of trying to fix the situation, how could you not tell us, why did you let so much time run? Is that correct? In other words, her focus, she was dwelling on, I can't believe we're in this situation, versus where is she? How do we find Kaylee?
That's accurate, yes.
Okay. And your mother's behavior and comments towards Casey, there were periods of time in which it appeared to you that Casey didn't have a chance to respond.
Sure, yeah.
Now, when you went to Mr. Lazzaro's house, those bags were already packed, weren't they?
Yes, they were, except for the laptop bag. But yes, they were.
And you do not believe, well, let me rephrase that. It's your belief that those bags were packed by Mr. Lazzaro, isn't it?
Sustain.
Your Honor, if I could respond to that very briefly, there were mentions.
Objection to the speaking objection.
You can approach the SAPA if you need to.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Have you had an occasion to see and to know how both you and your sister pack bags?
Yes.
And you shove items in the bag as opposed to neatly folding them typically, is that correct?
Correct.
And that was not how you found the items that were packed when you went to Mr. Lazzaro's house, is that correct?
That is correct.
And based on that observation, do you have knowledge as to whether or not your sister packed that bag versus someone else?
To the speculation.
Overrule as to that question.
She didn't pack those bags.
Is it almost 100% your firm belief that some?
I'm going to have to object and move to strike the response. They called for a yes or no question.
They gave an opinion. Sustain as to the last question.
When you say the last question, that was midway through a question. Is it the question before I was midway through or the previous question?
The one you were midway through.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That opinion that your sister did not pack that bag, can you tell me, sir, that it's in fact a firm opinion that you have, isn't it?
I can't hear you, Mr. George.
I'm sorry, sir. This is the
I'll
same
rephrase
objection
it.
that I had before. It's asking the witness to form an opinion and to bolster that opinion.
Okay.
I'll withdraw that.
Sustain. He's already answered the previous question.
The bags that you picked up, they had no odor, did they?
No.
In your family, it's your father who details or cleans the cars inside out and out, isn't it? That's his role.
Typically, yes.
And he would do that, if not every weekend, every other weekend.
Absolutely.
The laptop with the blue screen, when you arrived at Mr. Lazzaro's apartment, he was there when you obtained that laptop, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And you, as we sit here today, cannot say, for example, that he might have been the one to have caused the screen to become blue.
Objection is speculation.
Sustain.
That's all we have, Your Honor, at this time, subject to recall.
Okay. Thank you. Redirect.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Anthony, Ms. Sims had asked you about the phone call of July 3rd from your mom, and you had testified that Kaylee wasn't mentioned. Is that correct?
No, specifically that Kaylee wasn't missing.
Wasn't missing.
Correct.
What was that? What was the phone call about?
That Kaylee and Casey have not been home.
Objection, Your Honor. Scene doesn't stay on. I'm sorry, Your Honor. Objection, hearsay.
The door's been opened. They asked the question.
I'm sorry.
They asked the question.
Just a second.
Yeah, in this particular situation, he's asking or seeking to elicit hearsay from this witness.
Approach for a second. You may proceed, Mr. George.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Anthony, when you had testified earlier that your dad arrived, I believe, shortly before or shortly after the police?
Shortly before.
Shortly before. When the police arrived, were you all separated?
Eventually, they separated us, yes.
When your sister told you this kidnapping scenario, would it be fair to say your focus left your sister and focused on finding Kaylee?
100%.
When the police arrived, they were told, or the defendant, your sister, told them about the kidnapping, correct?
Yes, to my knowledge.
Objection outside the scope of the...
Overruled.
Correct?
To my knowledge, yes, yes.
So when the police arrived, their focus was not on your sister anymore, but was it focused on trying to find Kaylee?
Yes.
I'm sorry. He is attempting to elicit this witness's perception of what
I'm going to
the
object to the
officer-
speaking objection, Your Honor.
Is your objection
Jim.
sustained? It calls for somebody else's focus.
Did you speak with the police
Yes,
that
sir.
night?
Yes, sir.
Did you talk to them about what your sister had told you in reference to the kidnapping?
I'm sorry, outside the scope. Objection.
Overruled.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All your subsequent conversations with the police, that, or at least the one that we've mentioned with Detective Edwards, was focused, those questions were about what your sister had said about the kidnapping, correct?
I'm sorry, objection again, outside the scope, and we don't know how many conversations we're talking about.
I specifically referenced Detective Edwards.
Overruled. Okay. Mr. George, kind of speak into the microphone a little bit more. She can hear you.
Yes.
And Mr. Anthony, before you answer the question, let that be a break so we can hear whatever objections. Ask your question, Mr. George.
I'll try to ask it the same. When you had a subsequent interview with law enforcement, you were asked specifically questions about what your sister had told you about the kidnapping.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I'm going to object. That exceeds my cross, the scope of my cross.
Overruled.
Yes. Yes.
And Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Yes.
Any questions about what was raised in that redirect? All right, Mr. Anthony, you're excused, subject to recall.
Thank you. This is still up here, by the way.
Have it, leave it there.
Okay.
You can return that to the clerk at some points, Mr. George, your exhibit. Who is the state's next witness? Long or short? For your direct.
From my perspective, short.
For your direct.
Short.
Okay. Stop at 12 o'clock with him. Let's bring him in.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Good morning, sir. Please tell us your name.
Rendon Fletcher.
Mr. Fletcher, how were you employed back in July of 2008?
With the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
What was your position with that agency?
I was a corporal, Uniform Patrol Division, Sector 2.
Does that mean you are a supervisor of some sort?
Yes.
How long had you been with the Orange County Sheriff as of July 15th of 2008?
I got hired with the Sheriff's Office in 1999.
Do you recall being one of the first individuals, if not the first, to respond to a call at 4937 Hope Spring Drive?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Were you, in fact, the first individual to arrive?
Yes, I was the first person to arrive on that date.
All right. And did you arrive in the typical fashion, in a patrol car and in full uniform?
Yes, I was in a marked patrol car, full uniform.
Were you alone, or were you with another officer?
I was by myself at the time of arrival.
Okay. When you arrived there, do you know what type of call you were responding to?
The initial call that was dispatched was a stolen vehicle call, is how it came through.
Okay. So when you arrived at that residence on Hope Spring, were you under the impression that this was the type of call that you would initially be handling?
From the initial information provided, it was a stolen vehicle coupled with some type of verbal altercation between the caller and their adult daughter.
Okay. So when you get to the house, what's the first thing you do?
I approached the door. I don't recall if I rang the doorbell or knocked at the front door, and it's been a while, but I'm not sure who responded, but someone did answer the front door.
Okay. Did you go into the house?
Yes, I did.
What were your actions immediately upon entry?
Made contact with the caller and began to gather information on the nature of the phone call, of why they called us.
Okay. How many people were inside the house at that point? Do you have a recollection?
Initially, there were 3 adults inside the home.
Okay. Do you remember an individual by the name of Cindy Anthony?
Yes.
Was Cindy Anthony inside the home?
Yes, she was.
Do you remember an individual by the name of George Anthony?
Yes.
Was George Anthony inside the home?
Yes, he was also in the home.
How about an individual by the name of Casey Anthony? Was
Yes.
she inside the home?
Casey was also inside the home.
All right. Where were these individuals upon your arrival?
I don't recall seeing Casey immediately when I came in. I did see George and Cynthia. They were inside the residence, somewhat of the living room and off in the kitchen area as well.
All right. And do you have a recollection as to the demeanor of these individuals upon your arrival?
George didn't say too much initially. Cynthia was quite upset, really just trying to figure out what was going on and convey as much information as possible to the situation.
Had you been given information that Cindy Anthony was the caller?
I don't recall at that time.
Okay. At that point,
I think
sorry.
the initial information that came through, as far as our computer screen, that she was the caller, the initial caller.
Okay. At that point, what actions do you take?
I began to just ask, why was she calling? What was the nature of the call in relation to the vehicle? She explained that situation. Later, we gathered more information on the whereabouts of her granddaughter, and her granddaughter was missing at that time.
Okay. How soon after your arrival do you speak with Casey Anthony, if you do at all?
I spoke with her shortly after that. I can't, if I would have to guess, within 10 or 15 minutes probably.
Of your arrival?
Yes, after arrival.
Did she stay in a room other than the room that her parents were in?
In the general vicinity, initially, yes. She came out.
Okay. What did she tell you was the reason why you were there?
She didn't really say much. Asked her numerous times, different things, and she wasn't very forthcoming with anything, with any type of information initially.
Stating an opinion.
Overruled.
Okay. Were you asking questions?
Yes.
Were you getting responses from her?
Not initially. Not initially. I was not getting anything to further the nature of the call and the concerns of her mother.
All right. You said not initially. Did there
Correct.
come a point where you were able to get any information from
Yes.
Miss Anthony?
Yes.
What information did you get?
She did convey that her daughter had been missing for a period of time, approximately about a month. She had last seen her in the custody of the nanny that she had left her with, and she had been wanting to conduct her own investigation at that point in time, and I wasn't quite clear why she didn't initially contact us and ask for our assistance.
Okay. Did other patrol deputies arrive to assist you with this call?
Yes, shortly after my arrival, Deputy Acevedo arrived at the scene to assist with the call. At that point in time, after I just got some initial information from the parties at the residence, I contacted my sergeant at the time.
Would that be Sergeant Reginald Hosey?
Yes.
Did Sergeant Hosey arrive?
Yes, he arrived later at the scene.
Okay. At that point, is he, since he's the sergeant, he's a one-level supervisor above you?
Correct.
Is he the individual that takes responsibility for directing the actions of the deputies on the scene?
At that point, once he arrives on scene, he takes over the scene typically and began running it.
Okay. You had indicated that Ms. Anthony said that a Zenaida Gonzalez had taken her child. Did you inquire or did you find out the last location where she said she saw this child?
At the time, she did not know the exact location by name, but she was willing and able to show us the location.
Okay. Since she was willing to do that, did you take some steps to find out this location where
Yes.
she had last seen the child?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes,
Were you involved in whatever steps were taken?
Yes.
To what extent?
I drove my marked patrol car over to the Sawgrass Apartments. Deputy Acevedo transported Casey in the vehicle and her marked patrol car to the apartment complex.
Okay. When you arrived at the complex, was any action taken there with Miss Anthony?
Deputy Acevedo had her point out the apartment of where the last known location was, of where she had dropped Kaylee off.
Do you remember where that was?
I know if you would pull into the apartment complex, it was one of the first buildings and on a second story apartment.
All right. At this juncture, do you remember the apartment number?
No, I do not.
All right. If I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
It's page 2137. If I may have you look at that document. Tell me if you recognize it first.
Yes.
What do you recognize it to be?
A supplemental report produced by myself.
Was that report produced at a point closer in time to the events that we are speaking of?
It was post the events, and the indication was apartment 210.
Okay. Does this refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay. That's the reason why you write reports?
Correct.
Did you have an opportunity to contact any occupants of apartment 210?
I did go to the apartment, and from what I could view from ground level as well at the stair level, the blinds were open, and there was, from my viewpoint, I could not see any furniture inside. It appeared to be vacant. No lights were on. I knocked. There was no answer.
Okay. Did you share that information with Miss Anthony at that point?
I don't know if I can't recall if I had said anything to her about that or not.
Okay. Did Ms. Anthony leave the area with Deputy Acevedo while you remained?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I have no other questions of the witness, Your Honor.
Go ahead if you're going to be brief.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Well, maybe in another 30 seconds. You arrived and the garage door was open,
Yes,
and you saw the white Pontiac Sunfire,
I did see the Sunfire in the garage, yes.
and the trunk was open,
I believe so, yes, the trunk was open.
and you were in and out of the garage.
I wouldn't say I was in and out of the garage, no.
You've been in the garage that evening.
I know we went through the garage one time to talk to different parties, actually to walk outside with Casey.
And you did not observe any foul odor coming from the car.
I did not spend any lengthy period of time by the vehicle.
I didn't ask how long you spent there. I asked that you did not observe any odors of any decomposition coming from that car.
No, I couldn't say that I did.
I'm sorry?
I can't say that I did.
Okay. And how many other police officers showed up that evening?
I was not at the scene the entire time, so from the time I was there, another 3 or 4 initially while I was there.
And did any of the 4 police officers who were there with the garage door open, the car and the Pontiac Sunfire in the garage with the trunk open, come to you and tell you, I smell something, some human decomposition over here?
Sustain.
Were you ever made aware at any time that evening that there was a car with human decomposition emanating from it?
Any knowledge would be based on hearsay.
Sustain.
I have no further questions.
Okay. May the deputy be excused.
Sorry about that, Judge. I'm hungry too. Mr. Fletcher, in your report, do you indicate anything? As part of your report, you're required to put down things that you saw,
Observations, correct?
things that other officers have advised you of?
No, not necessarily. If they're going, go ahead.
If you brief someone of a fact, or someone briefs you of a fact, you put that in your report, do you not?
It just dependent, because they may go ahead and report it in their supplement or their report.
My question to you, sir, is if you brief someone of a fact, or if someone briefs you of a fact, that goes in your report.
Yes,
And that would include, unless another officer is assigned to do a report, that your report is the report for that call.
no.
Okay? How does it work then?
Depending on the situation, a deputy or just dependent, someone may take the actual call. They may take the main report, and then you provide a supplemental report to the main report itself.
And in your report, where you put facts that you received from Miss Anthony,
I attach the supplemental report.
correct, and you put facts that you received from Miss Anthony,
If anything pertaining to the nature, it would have been included in there.
is that a yes?
As I said, if it pertained to anything that she would have told me, it would have been in the report.
Okay. And facts from other individuals?
My observations of that, because like I said, I wasn't there the entire time. So if I didn't interact or I wasn't given the information by someone else, I wouldn't put it down.
What I'm just trying to ask you is that your report contains facts that you observe and facts that other people give you,
Would be facts that I observed.
and that you didn't observe anything that my client told you, did you?
Could you repeat that, please?
You did not observe anything, any facts that my client told you she observed.
She didn't give me any pertinent information other than what was reported.
You didn't observe Zanny the nanny.
Correct, I did not.
This is something she told you.
Correct.
Okay. So you're putting facts in your report of things people told you, right?
Of someone else, not necessarily the deputies.
Right. So my question to you, is there anything within the four corners of your report having to deal with the smell of human decomposition from the Pontiac Sung Fire?
The hearsay and negative impeachment.
Sustained.
Is there anything in your report?
Sustained based upon state. Sustained based upon State versus Johnson.
I have no further questions.
May the witness be excused.
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the time is now approximately 5 minutes past the hour of noon. We're going to be in recess until 1:30. Enjoy your lunch. Please remember all of my previous admonitions. All right, thank you, members of the